Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about how we can use Google Forms to create a comprehension scaffold. This video is in response to a question that I got on Facebook about what kind of activities I might do during vowel teams. Now, to clarify, I teach primarily students who are older, 3rd grade through 7th grade, who are struggling readers, so they're a little bit behind where their peers are. And let me get rid of this little box on the screen. Um, and so once we hit vowel teams, it's really where the rubber's hitting the road for my students. Again, these are not younger students where we have to really introduce this stuff for the first time. This is content that they've seen before. They didn't understand it the first time around, and they've been trying to compensate for it ever since. So this, for my students, is really where we're starting to transition into an intermediate Orton-Gillingham pacing away from that comprehensive piece. They've got a strong foundation in using the skills and the strategies, and they're really starting to catch up to where they can begin to participate in their general education classroom a little more independently. What I've found is that for a truly differentiated classroom, a student who can read vowel teams can read differentiated text in a 3rd through 6th grade class. So this is where they're really transitioning from a resource room student to an inclusion student. So it's a wonderful um, experience to be part of that transition for a student when they're really starting to catch up and they're seeing and their teachers are seeing what's going on and what's going different. So one thing I like to introduce as part of this transition during vowel teams is I like to introduce Newsella. There are some wonderful articles on Newsella. You can search for whatever you like, whatever topics you're interested that would be appropriate and interesting to your students. I've found an article on here called Why Are Dreams Wacky that has the EA vowel team in it. And what I do once I found an article that I like is I set that lexile down to the lowest lexile. Anything over a 500 is going to have a lot of diphthongs and morphemes and things that your students are not going to be ready for necessarily. So I stick with that lower lexile, even though that's below the level where I'm teaching them to read at. It's what's going to work with this site, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to preview the article and make sure there's nothing that's too hard, and then I'm going to build a scaffold to help my students to read it. Now I'm going to make this video about an article that is not on Newsella because I do not own Newsella articles, so I cannot be copying and pasting them and manipulating them for you here. Instead, I'm going to go to Teachers Pay Teachers, where there is this wonderful passage that I found that is free on Teachers Pay Teachers by the Interwoven Classroom. And the reason why I can use this on this video is because I wrote this passage. This actually is an open syllables reader for 5th, 6th, and 7th grade students who are reading at approximately a 1st grade reading level, who have closed syllables, open syllables, and some knowledge of blends, and who have the characteristic high sight word vocabulary that is often found in readers who are older but who are struggling because they've been memorizing words for so long. So this is really designed for a 5th through 7th grade student. And because I wrote it and because I own it, I'm going to show you how I could adapt this for remote instruction. So I'm really lucky because this file type is a PDF. I could download it and copy everything that I wanted into my Google form, but I am lucky because I already have the original document. I have this in my Google Docs, and if you would like a Word document for this and you know how to reach me on Facebook or through the comments, let me know and I can make this available as a Word document if there's enough interest in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my Google form. I've already got one open and I've already started it. And the reason why I've done that is because if I go into my Google Docs right now and I go ahead and open up a Google form to show you how to do that, it's going to show you my district and it's going to show you my first and last name, as well as the random pictures of students that are in my Google Docs. And because of confidentiality issues, I'm not willing to share that. So I've already opened my Google Doc or my Google form, and I've already gotten it started. I put in the title of the article. If I had a link, I could put a link in here where it says form description, and I've got an example of a question. So when I do my Fab 4 lessons, and obviously this will be focused on Fab 4 because that goes with the IMSC practicum. When I do a Fab 4 lesson, I always start with summarizing. And when I summarize, I give students the article, the passage, I give them the whole thing, but I draw their attention to the title and the picture, if there's a picture. I also draw their attention to the subtitles, and I just ask them what they think they're going to read. This prediction question's a little more involved. It gives the caption to the picture, which says, "Tulips are nice, but who knew that once upon a time people lost their houses and riches over tulips?" True fact, by the way. And I just copied and pasted that into the question. And my question says, how do you predict this can happen? Now, the wording is a little bit awkward because this has to be decodable for my student. I can't say make a prediction unless my student can read shun. And I know from the students I assign this article to that that's going to be too much. Now, depending on the abilities of my students and their abstract thinking, their comfort with computer typing technology, I have two choices for how I can have them answer. For a student who's a little higher, who's able to use a keyboard, I could have them give me a short answer. Or for a student who's a little lower, maybe struggles with that keyboard piece, or who's likely to give up in frustration, I'm going to give them a multiple choice. So if I'm going to give them a multiple choice question, I might say, how do you predict that can happen? Maybe they might think the house will burn down. People stole them. Something else. Okay, so again, if you're doing multiple choice, you're going to want to make sure your choices are decodable. You want to make sure that your child or your student can read the word burn and the word stole, which may or may not, depending on your students, or you can just have them give a short answer and they would just type their answer into this box. So let me show you how I would break this up. So the value that I found in Fab 4 lessons is that it takes this from what my students are seeing, which is a giant wall of text that is terrifying. It is like an ocean. They are drowning in it. They just want to get through it. It's way too much. The expectation is way too much, and they just want to blaze through. I have children say all the time, can we just get started? Can we stop wasting time talking about this text and just read it? The problem is that's not reading. Decoding and reading are not the same. Decoding is only part of reading. So what I'm going to use my Google form to do is to break this up. I'm going to break it up into manageable chunks. Now the first chunk that I'm going to do if I'm teaching this article is I'm going to make sure my students can read the sight words. I may or may not already have assessments that say if they can read the sight words, and I'm going to make sure they can read the hard words. These are words I know they will not be able to read pretty predictably based on the text. Because I wrote this text for my students, I pulled out the words that I knew were going to cause a problem. If you're doing a Newsela article or another article, you're going to need to scan through and see what words do you see that will cause a problem. Maybe they have an R-controlled vowel. Maybe they have a rare end blend. Maybe they have an ambiguous vowel in the middle, or consonant LE, or a diphthong, or something like that. You want to pull those words out that you know your students are not phonetically ready for. Make sure you're looking for those shun words if you're doing a Newsela, because those are everywhere. And what I'm going to do before I even go into my Google form is I'm going to go to either Google Slides, or I'm just going to get some index cards, and I'm going to make flashcards to make sure they can read those words. This is not going to be the same as teaching a red word, because I'm not trying to teach a red word. I'm not trying to give them permanent knowledge of this word necessarily, but I'm trying to give them access to the article. So it's more of an, almost you'd say educational justice, I guess. They're accessing it on their own muscle. Even if they don't remember the word bubble in a week, I don't care. I want them to be able to read the word bubble in the text. So I'm going to make slides for these words. Again, I can use Google Slides or just flashcards and do that over Zoom or Google Hangouts with the student directly so that I know that they can read these words at least temporarily so they can access the text. Fundamentally, we want our students accessing text. Now, if I'm going to sit and work on this text for a week, and if you get the product on um, Teachers Pay Teachers, there are some resources that go with this that you could spread over multiple sessions. Maybe you do want to teach some of these words as read words, and you really do want them to be fluent with the words, and that's okay. But if I'm teaching this in a one session, I'm just going to drill them on these words until they can read them just to get them through the article. All right, so once I've done that piece, I'm going to go in and I'm going to chunk out this article, and each chunk is going to go with a Fab 4 question. The trick is that I have to include everything. So I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm adding some text here. So the sad thing with this software is you can't control the font size. A lot of our struggling readers, they feel more confident if you increase the font size, which is why if you look at this article, the font is Comic Sans and it's size 14. That makes articles look a lot less threatening to students. So I'm going to copy and paste this in, and if this is something someone else wrote, I'm going to go ahead and change anything that I think could be simplified to meet the needs of my students, or added or changed. I'm going to make those adjustments in this because this is a scaffold. All right, but I'm going to copy and paste this in, make any changes I need to make. Since I wrote this, I obviously think it's perfect and nothing needs changed. And then I'm going to put a question that can go with it. So this section of the article is really just giving background knowledge. So my question is going to be a summarized question. Tell 2 facts about tulips. A lot of kids, a lot of our struggling readers, they don't know what a tulip is. So they need to know. They need to go into that, and if they don't understand, then they're going to have a hard time with this article, and they're not going to be able to consistently read the word tulip, even if they can decode it. So I could, again, give either a short answer. I could give a paragraph if I am really pushing that with my students. I could give check boxes and have them check off 2 facts that are true. I could put up 3 facts and 2 are true and 1 is false, and have them check off the things that are true. If I'm doing a checkbox, then you better believe 1 is going to be a picture. I want my students to show me what a tulip looks like, so I'm going to have a picture of a tulip, and they're going to need to check that that's what it looks like. All right, but I'm not going to do that because I'm running a little low on time here. So what I'm going to keep on doing is I'm going to keep on adding in the parts of my article. Tulips of the past, that's a pretty dense section. I might break this up into 2 chunks and then have a question that goes with it. So I'm going to copy and paste the text in and then do a question just as I did all the way through the article. Now, one thing I cannot do with this article that I could do if I was doing Newsela is at the end of this process, this Fab 4 process, once we've done some predictions and we've answered questions and we've clarified vocabulary and summarized, I can have my students go and read the actual Newsela article at the lowest lexile. I can assign it to them. And then there's activities that go with it. And the quiz that it offers is linked to the lexile of the passage. So it's a little bit simpler. So you can have them take this as kind of a post-test to see that they understood. That is the end of my time. Thank you so much for watching. I am looking forward to doing more videos with you. Please feel free to reach out if there are any other topics you'd like to see me cover. And other than that, good luck with remote education and have a wonderful day.